Hey guys, it's nice to see you. It's been a journey. So thank you all for being here. It is my absolute pleasure to have endured 8 hours of delays and risking a deadly disease to be here with you today. And I would do it for none other than my fabulous guest, Miss Joyce Abbott. Hands down, one of the most exciting keynote speakers we have had in my time coming to EWA. A little bit about Miss Abbott. She is the namesake of the hit show Abbott Elementary, the gift to us all in the last year, which was created by her brilliant former student, Quinta Brunson. In addition to that, she is a recent retiree of the Philadelphia Public School District, where she served more than 2 decades, most recently as a climate manager at Andrew Hamilton School, a K-8 school where she met Quinta. A graduate of HBCUs, she served in the U.S. Army for 10 years, including a 10-month tour in the Persian Gulf War. She earned the rank of Staff Sergeant. It was her service to this country that led her to her service in the classroom through the teaching program Troops to Teachers. She's had a distinguished career, being named Who's Who among America's Finest Teachers in 04, 05, and 07. And under her leadership as climate manager, Alexander Hamilton was recognized by the district for outstanding strides in school climate and culture. And I want to congratulate her on her retirement, which was in June.
Yes.
So, June, retirement is great. Which also means she doesn't work for the district, so she can keep it real. And so with that, I would like to get started. I think I have to say, if you are going to tweet about this, please use hashtag EWA22. And let's just jump right in.
Okay.
So, we'll start. So I'm sure you're being very reflective right now as you in your career as a public educator. And so I was interested in, we have such an opportunity to get some historical context. What was the biggest difference in the education system on your last day versus your first? How were your first years in the classroom different than your last?
Wow. That's an excellent question. First of all, thank you guys for having me. I'm glad to be here, and it's good to see all of you. Let's dive right in to that question, because it's an excellent question. The first day as opposed to my last day. The school district within itself has changed drastically. My first day in the class, although my class size was very huge, my first day in the class, I was at like 36. The behaviors were still prevalent, but you did have more collaboration for me my first year with the teachers. It was not as much violence. The gun violence, especially in the neighborhood in which the school which I retired at, the gun violence is at an all-time high. The teachers were not as scared when I first started. The teachers stayed late. They stayed late. We were there until 5, 6, 7. Right now, when I retired, my last couple of years, the parking lot is cleared right after dismissal. And I think that is due to the violence in the area. As far as other differences, technology was not as prevalent when I first started. It seems like right now, everything is done on the computer. The kids are given free time on the computer. They don't write as much. They cannot use dictionaries. They don't even know how to use a library because everything is done on the computer. So with technology and the violence, those are 2 areas that mainly, it's a lot of differences, but those 2 are at the forefront from when I started years ago.
And do you believe that those changes in delivery of instruction, commitment to instruction, have had any real downsides in contributing to the state, quite perilous state of our education system today?
Most definitely. In this work, as far as educating or educating people, it takes time. I never was able to successfully get my work done in the course of an 8 to 3 day. So when you are leaving by the dismissal, and there's several teachers that say, I don't take work home. It is no way we can move our student in the course of 8 to 3. It just takes so much time. Full days, sometimes weekends, and the sacrifice. It takes so much to successfully and effectively move our students. So the long days that the teachers and the staff did put in when I first started, and the collaboration with each other, we would stay after school to collaborate on different students. It did make a difference, and it did result in them achieving higher scores.
So, I mean, in that vein, coming down, well, we're still in the pandemic, but at least resuming some sense of normalcy in school in the past year, the burnout is real. And so I know that, the days should be long, the hours are longer, but, how did you see teachers manage that in the past year? As a climate manager, you were in, even during the pandemic, you were in virtual classrooms. Were they really able to put in the time that was required? And if so, or if not, how did that benefit students?
It was extremely difficult. When we shut down due to the pandemic, it was sudden. So we went into an all virtual learning, which no one was ready for. Our district had never experienced that. So even for the teachers to try to keep the students engaged full-time on a computer, it was difficult. It was difficult. I had access to go into all the classes. Some students would be laying in bed. For the teachers to keep the expectation high, it was difficult. And I can't say that was due to them not trying. This was something very new. So as we transitioned back into the hybrid and then eventually into the full person learning, teachers were really out of the classroom for almost a year. So even getting back into the mode of classroom expectations, the classroom environment, it was difficult. And doing virtual learning, I went out to the streets, I went out to visit, I went out to the homes, and I got a chance to experience, just the life of some of these kids. Although I'm definitely familiar with the, neighborhood that I taught in and the population that I served. So when they were coming back in, not even being aware of what the students went through in their communities, with the looting, with the shooting, with the civil unrest. They were coming back with a lot of trauma. During that time, I think just reflecting what do I need to do to ensure that all of my students reach some level of success. Because believe me, it is extremely difficult. And a lot of them still, when it was time at the end of the day, were just more eager to really get out, of the building and get home due to the civil unrest, still within the community that the school was in.
And so another, issue in the teaching force that's come to the forefront of debates, particularly during the pandemic, is the desperate need to retain Black teachers and the desperate need to support Black teachers with the invisible role that they carry, serving some of the most challenging populations. So I'm interested in how you were able to persevere and why you think others.
How I was able, thank you, and that's a good question, Erica. How I was able to persevere in this work, because even when I started out, the violence might not have been where it is today, but it was hard. It was hard. I had 36 students my first day. But how I was able to make it was because I had a true passion for the work. I had a true passion for the work. No matter how many students came to me, but basic, I had to move them because I had to sleep at night. I had to sleep at night. So how I was able to keep it going and keep it moving, even when I transitioned into climate manager, my days were long because as opposed to just being in charge of one class, I was in charge of the climate of an entire school. And this is still in a community that gun violence is at an all-time high. So even being able to make it through, not only through prayer, but through my passion and belief in our students. I just had a true passion and I wasn't scared of the work. I was not scared. Because if you're going to teach in a community, regardless, you cannot be scared to teach in a community that you are serving in. You just can't. Because sometimes it takes, you may have to go out, you may have to go out and interact with parents, and you can't be scared. So what kept me is my passion. That's the main thing. I was passionate about it. I was passionate. I wanted to make a difference. Because the students, their lives and their futures depended on me. So it's easy for me to go home. My bills are paid. I have food in the refrigerator. My lights are off. It's easy for me to sleep at night. But could I sleep at night knowing that I spent half the day giving kids free time and they're not progressing? Because if we look at our data at the end of the school year, we have too many students that are below basic. And we would come back from summer and the teachers would talk about all the fabulous vacations that they went on and the wonderful places they went. And then they put the scores up and all of your kids are below basic. You have failed those students. You're not giving them a chance. So I was to make it through my passion. Through my passion. It was more than a job for me.
Do you think, I mean, what do you think are some of the biggest or one big misperception about Black teachers in particular?
That, okay, I'm sort of very well for Black teachers. I think it's often said that, you know, our students do better with Black teachers. And that can have some truth to it, but we have some Black teachers that aren't effective either. I know several Black teachers that are very effective. They go above and beyond, they sacrifice. Although sometimes our students may relate better to Black teachers because this is all they know. They have never, most of them have never left their communities. The only people that they see are people that look like them. But some of them aren't even effective. To answer that question, because again, at the end of the day, it's about looking at yourself in the mirror and looking at the sacrifices you have made and how your kids have progressed. How your kids have progressed, and that can either be Black or white.
We're gonna get to the fun stuff soon, guys. Don't worry, I just have to. Another question that I personally just want to know, how did your military skills translate? How did you go from Desert Storm to West Philly classroom? How did that transition go for you, Ms. Abbott?
You know what, my undergraduate, and that's a good question, thank you, is in business and economics, but I always wanted to be, you know, a teacher in the back of my mind. So when I entered into the Army, prior to getting out, I was selected to be one of the first cohorts of the nationally regarded Troops to Teachers program. And they did, you know, I was able to get my master's degree and into education. And so how did it transition?
Yeah,
okay, right. So the discipline, I'm sorry, even as so much. The discipline from the military really assisted with me having excellent classroom management. My attendance is great. The years that I put in, I have so much time. As I retired, and people think you need to use your time, you're not going to get paid for it. It's not about getting paid for my time, it's about me being present for my students. So my attendance was remarkable because when I was in the military, you couldn't just put it in on the computer and call out. You had to get in full uniform and go to sitcom. You have to get up and still go in full uniform. So when I came out, and then after 10 years, that was my life, being able to have the luxury to even go on the computer, you know, or call out the A's stuff. But my attendance is great. My class was run definitely in order. It wasn't like a boot camp. It was in order. I did not call parents. I said back to school night, I said, if they ever called you, it's a real problem. I did not call if a kid cursed at me. I did not call if they threw something. We're going to talk about this. You're not having a good day? We're going to talk about it. But I had the relationship to let them know that that was my class. So the discipline, the order, the structure, because chaos and Miss Abbott, and we won't tell you, they did not equal. I didn't do chaos. And even as I transitioned into climate manager, where I had, you know, for the entire school, the lunchroom is a big area of concern in our schools. And the lunchroom was in decency and in order. Even if the children came down out of order, we're not going to do this. We're going to be in order, and we're going to pass out to recess in order. And honestly, our kids appreciate order. They really do appreciate order. The amount of students that have come back, and even prior to Abbott Elementary, and reached out to me and said, you have really changed my life. And I will tell you something, that means more than any paycheck, regardless. Any paycheck, regardless. And regardless of what they do. I've seen that one of my young students, he's a trash man now, and I was so proud of him. I was just so proud of him because I knew the struggle that he came through, even his family life and his home life, not having anything to eat. So to even see you're holding down a city job, that I was very proud of him, and he was really happy to see that I was just so proud of him. So definitely, but being back, the military, the discipline, the order, and the structure, and the never giving up, working long days and long hours, because when I was in the military, I worked long hours. So it's nothing for me to go in at 6 or 7 in the morning and leave at 6 or 7 at night. If it meant taking a student down to a different office or sacrifice a weekend's mom, can I meet them at the library? We have to work on this reading. I need to work on this concept because I was determined that I'm not going to do below basic. And I did very low below basic in my many years in the classroom.
You get emotional. So one of the parts of your fabulous profile by Kristen Graham, EWA member,
yes,
you should all read it, was when you talked about how you were just as proud of the student who became the hairdresser as you were of Spencer, who is just shattering all kinds of records and doing great things. I did have one more messy question, but I'll go to the fun stuff. We'll come back to that. So when did you first learn about Abbott Elementary? When did you know that it was?
Well, actually, my daughter followed Quinta on social media, and it was a while even before it came to light. She said, Mom, Quinta's doing this TV show, right, the TV show, and it's going to be called Abbott Elementary, and I just know it has something to do with you. And I was like, okay. I really didn't think anything about it. She said, I know it has something to do with you. And then, you know, when it started coming out quickly, and one night was watching Channel 6, and the newscaster was saying that she actually named it after a 6th grade teacher, Miss Abbott, and if you're watching, Quinta would like to connect with you. And I was like, oh, wow. So my daughter went to social media, and Quinta, you know, called me that night. And it was a very, you know, emotional time. We were crying, and it was great. But that's when I found out, when my daughter first mentioned it, I'm like, yeah, right, okay. But it came to truth, so definitely humbly honored.
What did it mean for you, though? I mean, it's an honor, sure, but
it meant a lot. I'm not even going to say that it did not mean a lot. It meant a whole lot, because in this work, you know, the sacrifices and the time that I put in, not even time, financially, times when I didn't even have it, but if they needed it, they went first. I was like, wow, you know, to have something like this is something, let me tell you, I would never, ever, in my wildest dream, imagine that a TV show would be named after me. So it's still sinking in, actually, but I am definitely humbly honored, definitely.
So what character do you most identify with?
Definitely Shirley Ralph's position, a veteran teacher, pretty firm, definitely. Definitely. Quinta said that's related to her mom too, but Quinta's mom taught, it was an awesome teacher, also taught kindergarten.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, definitely Shirley Ralph, no nonsense. But I think I was a little more light. But I was firm, but I was light. Like they just sit and talk after me, or we could choke it up. As long as, you know, they didn't like cross the line, like, yo, or whatever. No, remember, you know, we're going to keep the lines of respect, but definitely, yeah.
Is there a scene or episode that sticks out to you where you were like, yes, they nailed it, or
Right, it was, I would say 2 early on. One when it was something with the light bulb, and the light bulb wasn't working, and Quinta was determined to get that light bulb working because the atmosphere will be conducive to learning. And that's the way I always have been. This atmosphere needs to be conducive to learning. Like even when I was in the class and I went in the lunchroom that was dirty, our kids can't eat like this. Come on, you're going up and you're going to eat with me. And also when it was a young man that was gifted that entered school and they were trying to give him special instruction. And she said, I believe that all of our children, you know, should be able to benefit from this, you know, special education or special services that this young man who was deemed to be gifted would receive. And I'm a firm believer of that. We do have like top schools, and why can't all of our kids get the same education? Why should, you know, your code determine your education? Because in some schools, this school is for the brightest kids, this school, the kids don't achieve that. Well, I would like to see all of our schools where all of our children can achieve, where all of our children can achieve.
so, I mean, my Quinta as a student question is, you know everybody's like, I always knew she was gonna make it. And they really couldn't. But is there any memory of her where you now see this blossoming as she blossoms with the show? Was there anything you recall from her as a middle schooler?
Definitely. There's a couple of things I can recall. First of all, when Quinta came into my class, she was with her mother at the same school from K through 5. And then she came into my class in 6th grade. She was very, very, very shy, very quiet, withdrawn. The expectation in my class for all of my students, a lot of my students came in quiet, and everyone would say, oh, they're so good because they're quiet. They're good because they're quiet. Our children need to learn how to speak. They need to learn how to talk. So when they do get into good high schools, they won't sit in the back of the room and feel inferior because there were people that don't look like them. So we had to speak in complete sentences. We had to share out. So she really came out of her shell at that time. But her goals and expectations for herself, like if she was to receive a B, she would be very upset. I'm like, no, Quinta. But she, even at that age, she just strove for excellence. She set her bar high, and she did not waver. We did a lot of things with that class. We had a school store. We came in early in the morning to do hoagie sales for the entire school, because that year we went to the Chart House, and back in the day, the Chart House, it's still a restaurant on the waterfront, and stretched limos. And this was due to hard work, because I told them, when you are used to working hard, you get the best. And it was getting tight. Quinta was a class officer. She worked with, I had class bankers that counted the money. We were getting tight. It was like, for example, maybe we could go to the Olive Garden or Fridays on the school bus. No. When you work hard, you get the best. And I just instilled that now, even with their confidence. And I've seen Quinta, blossom into a very purple person. That confidence just blew off the roof. But I knew all of my students that come through me, I believe, will be successful. All of them. Because if you don't believe in them, who is? If you're not going to believe in the students that you serve, you have to believe in them. But to this magnitude, I didn't know, because when my daughter told me she was a comedian, I said, Quinta, a comedian? I've never seen that, her being a comedian. But I'm definitely proud of her. But as far as to her level of success right now, no, I'm not shocked because she was driven. And she said she started working in an Apple store in Philadelphia, and she had this dream, and she wasn't going to give up. And she transferred to an Apple store in LA, and it was not easy. It was not easy, but when she seen that dream and said, "I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep fighting," and she did. And now, like where she's at now, is remarkable. And I'm not going to say it was easy for her, but she was driven and she was determined, and she kept moving. And I'm so proud of her. Very proud of her.
Any storylines that you hope they pursue in season 2?
You know what? I haven't even thought about that. That's actually a good question.
I thought about it.
It's so much. I don't know.
She said she got, after one of the recent tragedies, she got this question of whether or not she would incorporate a school shooting or something, and she shut that down quick, fast, and in a hurry. But I mean, I'm just excited to see what she'll do.
I think anything that she does will be great, though.
Right.
So,
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so circling back around, that was fun. That's good enough. So I want your thoughts, though, on a lot of what we as education reporters are seeing debated right now. There's such, a lot of divisive issues, and they are spilling out into schools, and teachers and educators are just kind of in the crossfire of this kind of culture war that has been kind of roaring for a bit now. And especially because you're so passionate about combating gun violence, and you've seen the impact that you have on the community and kids in the community. I want to know from you what you think about the arming teachers debate. I mean, you have served, you have held weapons, you have carried weapons, you have served in the classroom, because a lot of these people don't know what they're talking about, right? So you have carried a weapon, you have stood in front of a classroom. How would you feel about doing that at the same time?
I really have emotions on that. For me personally, I'm not, afraid of a weapon because, again, I did 10 years in the United States Army, an expert on the M16. So I'm personally not afraid of weapons. So as far as teachers in classroom with weapons, in the inner city, well, really anywhere, because I'm looking at all the shootings that have happened at these schools. I just don't know if it would be a good look for children, but then again, if they're educated on gun safety, just like if guns are in the home, if they are used safely, if they're put up, if they're locked away, I can't say that I can go 100% to say that teachers could be armed, because sometimes teachers lose their cool. I've seen teachers lose their cool, who do you have to know? And I don't know, then that could be their whole life, because it's rough in these classrooms. So I really don't know if it would be good, because they may snap. I've seen several teachers, because we're faced with a lot right now, they're faced with a lot, because I'm tired right now, and I've seen teachers chase kids up the hall, no, you're not. So I don't know if it would be such a good thing, as far as in that regard. But these officers, I wouldn't have a problem. I wouldn't have a problem. But see, it would be hidden, and I would have a problem. I can handle, as far as anger, being comfortable with the weapon, held weapon, expert on weapon. I would be comfortable, but everyone is not in that state. Everyone is not there. But it's a lot. But to have them among our kids, I don't know, because I see the way some of the teachers handle, even if a child calls them a B or calls them a name, they're losing it, and that could be their whole future on the drop of their hat. So, but for me, I'm comfortable with handling a weapon. A lot of people are not. So.
There's a lot of debate about how we, particularly after the last 2 years, fuses are short. A lot has been turned upside down in terms of discipline reform because, educators are just really struggling with how to manage all of the trauma that is, exploding in schools and classrooms. It's a lot. So I'm sure you saw that as a climate manager. As you know, for several years there was this move away from zero tolerance, discipline, suspension, and at least from the folks I talk to, that is coming back because they don't know what else to do. So could you talk about your kind of philosophy on discipline, how you helped guide some of the teachers in your school last year, and where you think that should fall kind of nationally if we're going to help these babies get back on the right track?
Okay, discipline is a real struggle in a lot of our schools. First of all, as far as suspension, at my time in the classroom, I never suspended a child. I never suspended a child personally from my class. And I'm not saying everything was run in order. I'm not going to say I never been cursed out. I'm not going to say I never had a desk thrown at me. Yes, all of those. Been cursed out by parents. I handled the situation myself because if I, and they're at home, a lot of times they're in an environment that they don't need to be in. A lot of times, all of the times they're missing out on valuable instruction, and I needed my students to be in class. The discipline is definitely a problem. I seen as I took over the discipline of the entire school, a lot of things that the climate manager and the climate staff are being called for are classroom managed behaviors, where the teachers are just having to struggle right now managing a lot of the behaviors. Coming off of the pandemic, there's been a lot of trauma, again, with the civil unrest. But one thing I will say, if you're not familiar at all with the student population, as far as teachers that they are serving, not familiar at all with the communities that they are teaching in, not familiar at all with the home lives of the students they are serving, it's going to be a struggle. You have to understand that they might have heard gunshots all night. You might understand nobody's coming to parent conference. They're not even coming to get the report card. The parents don't care. It's not that they don't care, they don't know. A lot of times the whole family, or they're uneducated. The mothers are uneducated. The grandmother's uneducated. What's big is, you have more kids, you get more, an access card, or that's the welfare card. This is what they know, so it's up to us as teachers, to change that, to help them see different. But as far as the discipline, I'm a firm believer that you really have to know the community that you serve, regardless if they graduate number 1, number 2, number 3 in their class of education. Nothing can prepare you for when you're stepping into these schools. So you really have to, even if it means, this Saturday I'm just going to ride around and look at the neighborhood, because when all this unrest and the looting would take place, we were virtual, but I would have had to at least drive through, even if it's on a Sunday morning, the neighborhood in which I'm teaching, just to see what the students are experiencing. So when I come back, I'm able to talk about it. But when you have no clue of what it may have been like, it's hard to really understand that if they hear a door shut, why they may scream. Because that's maybe as a result of hearing gunshots all night. When I went out to some homes virtually, it was some of the conditions, because some kids I was so worried about, they wouldn't show off, they would be in a corner at home on a camera, and I'm like, no, I'm going to the house. And people hanging all out, and the secretary said, Dad, we don't want you out there by yourself. I'm good. I'm going to see about this child. I'm good. But then it helps you to understand the behaviors of our students better, because they go through so much. And when you understand, and as I said, I never suspended. As a climate manager, I said, this child needs to be suspended. Why do they need to be suspended? We have to understand them. It's a lot. They go through a lot. And once you understand it, you can understand, I'm not going to say all, but a lot of why the behavior problems are so prevalent in our schools. We just have so many of our population in our schools that really just don't understand the community that they serve. And they don't understand why mom may come up to conference drunk, or why dad may not come, or why the child has on the same clothes every day. May not understand it.
All right, we're going to get to Q&A soon next. We want some tips. So my dream is to be on Abbott Elementary as the reporter who shows up to Ava's school.
Oh, wow, nice.
And I would love to know how Ava would prepare the school for a reporter to show up, because you know it would be a hot mess. So tips for us, in all seriousness, right? So you see reporters come through your school.
Yes.
I would love to know from you as a teacher, now that you are retired, what we should be looking for, what you thought of the coverage coming from education reporters, anything that you think we completely miss, anything you think we get duped. Yeah.
Good question. First of all, all of my years, whenever any reporters came to the school or to do any story, everyone knew. The school was spotless, the floors were shiny, the trash was, I'm like, yo, this person is coming, they're coming, emails are going out, so we know. And I just wish that people would come into our schools and announce so we can see, because when you are in this work to do the work and you're doing it every day, it does not matter when someone comes in and when they're coming to observe you or when they're entering the doors of the school. But 9 times out of 10, or I would say mostly all the time, we know. But one thing, I feel that you can go into a class and you can see if it's being rehearsed or if it's a routine. You can see when it's being rehearsed, because a lot of times the kids will say, why are you saying that? You never say that. Or why are you doing it? A lot of times the kids will say it. But when you go into a class and the kids keep on, like if anyone ever came into my class and we had to speak in complete sentences, it's not going to be someone just comes to the door. We had to speak in complete sentences. What is your name? My name is, or when we're asking, so what is an alliteration? An alliteration is, we had to speak in complete sentences. And what was shocking, and even my kids, my students would talk about it, whenever a large majority of people will come in my class, they would say, how do you get your kids to speak like this? How do you get them to speak like this? And my students even started to see that. Why is it such a shock that they're speaking correctly? And that was really bothersome, because they are speaking correctly, it's a shock because they're in an inner city school and they're speaking correctly. But a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, you can see if it's rehearsed or if the classroom procedures, if they're going on and on and on, if this teacher is in there teaching. But I will tell you, in the schools, even with reporters, they have to be safe too. I know when Christian Ann came to my school, she was out there running around through the street talking with the parents, no fear. I was like, go ahead. She was out there in the rain going up the parents in the yard, because a lot of times you don't see that now. The teachers don't even do that. They're heading to the parking lot. But she came in, she was around, she interacted. And that's important too, because you're going out, because now you're talking to parents, you're out in the school, they don't know that, or you're interacting and you're seeing the real for real. But when you go in, and especially when they have designated classes, trust me, you're going into the best class. You're going into the class where there's no behavior problem. Let me choose the class that I want to go into. Choose the class, see the real struggle. But not most of the time, and I've been in this work a long time, and several people have been in my class. I've been on Channel 6, Channel 3, Channel 10, years. Several people. Everyday Hero and Philadelphia Daily News, because my class was structured, even if I was not there. So, and that's the one thing, most of the time, the school, all the time, I'm not going to say most of the time, school knows, and the places that you are going are some of the, probably the best places in the school. I would like to see, can I just go into this class, or can I just go into that class, and just maybe just ask a couple of the students, how are you today, and what are you doing today? You know, without being prompt, without being told where to go and what to do. Our kids need that. You need to hear from them. You need to hear from the kids the real truth. Even if you can say, can I do a small focus group just with kids? Can I just pick kids? Can I go into one class and pick a child? Because if not, you're going to get the best. You're going to get the kids who are going to tell you, let me do this. Because the kids need it. Their voice really, really, really needs to be heard. And that's what bothers me. Our children's voice needs to be heard. Hear it from them, because they'll tell you the truth. but you have to be able to pick them. If they're going to always tell you who to talk to and what classes to always go to, you will never get the truth, believe me. If you're always told where to go and who to see, you're not going to get the truth. You're not going to get the truth. But the kids will tell the truth. If you go in these schools and can I see this one, they will tell the truth. Because our kids want to learn, they want to do better, and it's not happening, and it's not going to happen. We need to hear from them and listen to them. But that's definitely a suggestion of mine. But you can even do little focus groups. We have to change the state of education for our babies. We have to change the state of education, especially for our African American youth. They are doing horrible in these schools. They are doing horrible. Horrible. And it brings tears to my eyes. They're doing horrible. And as I was speaking with someone, I was going to retire next year, but I retiring this year, it really didn't make too much of a difference. But I don't know if I could, even if I was early on, continue on with years because it's depressing now. If my name is a part of a school that we're not making gains and you're looking at data and everyone's below basic, I can't be a part of that. I'm a part of progress. I'm a part of making a difference in kids' lives. And so now, you know, the state where it's going, it's getting depressing. It's getting depressing. But I would like to see a change, and it's going to take everyone. So if that could ever happen, and reaching out to the kids and not being prompted where to go or prompted who to speak to, you will really get the truth in those regards.
I think that's perfect time to open up the floor. Anyone have questions for Ms. Abbott? How are we doing this?
We have the microphones in the middle.
Oh, mics are in the
Be sure to tell us who you are and where you work.
Yeah. Who you are and where you work.
Mic check, one, two. Yeah. So, my name is Jamal Abdullah. I'm an education editor at The Conversation. And I think I'm in a unique position to ask the question I'm about to ask because back in 2008, I was a member of the Philadelphia Teaching Fellows, which is a program for people who are like mid-career and we're thinking about switching into teaching. That makes me feel old. If I was mid-career in 2008, what am I not? Anyway, just as a point of reference, one of the teaching fellows was actually killed, murdered, before he even got a chance to start. Just to kind of, that case was actually featured on America's Most Wanted, just as a point of reference. But to get to the question, so as a writer at the time, what I saw myself doing was saying, hey, I used to be a crime reporter. I've written, front page stories at one of America's top newspapers. I know I have something to offer students in terms of being a writing instructor of some sort. What the system wanted was for me to teach special education. I didn't sign up for that. I didn't think it was fair to me, and I didn't think it was fair to the children for me to be steered somewhere just because you had a need for that. That's not what I was there for. So my question is, when there are black male educators or potential who come into the system, are there things that are somehow still, even once they're in the system, steering them away from where they can make a difference? Are they expected to deal with discipline problems or things like that, as opposed to making a difference in some of the other things you mentioned, such as literacy and writing? And if there are systemic things, what, if anything, can be done about that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jamal. Just to understand you correctly, you're asking, as far as the black males being basically, which is true, when they enter the schools, being put in places basically for discipline, like the special ed classes or the more difficult areas where the discipline is, as opposed to instruction.
Right, or in my case, I was being steered towards special ed. I had zero interest in special ed. I had zero expertise in special ed, but that's where they were kind of pushing me. I'm like, I just want to teach writing. That's what I do.
Okay.
So.
All right, that's a question. I had a young man at my school this year who said, I don't have any training on special ed because, he was teaching them a particular subject. But first of all, a lot of our students, even in my class, a lot of the students have to go out for some type of instruction, and they're labeled as special ed. But coming into this work, first of all, in order to have a SPED class, you're supposed to have a certification in special education. But Jamal is right, a lot of times our black males are placed in positions where the discipline, where they need a strong disciplinarian. And sometimes it works, and sometimes that don't even work. Sometimes that does not even work. But I don't know as far as the programs, but Jamal, as far as the SPED, you're supposed to have a certification to teach SPED. Now, the black males in the schools that I serve, they taught all the areas. If they weren't basically geared toward discipline, because trust me, I assisted a lot of them with discipline a whole lot. So they're not just focused on the discipline. They are in the schools, they are in the classrooms doing the content, the English, the music, the PE. So I do remember with teaching fellows, so I do think that is a transition from that, but I do agree with what you're saying as far as them placing them in areas where the disciplinary need is the greatest.
Hello, greetings. I'm Yetziman Wright. I'm actually staff with EWA. I'm from Atlanta, and actually I'm heavily involved in the homeschool community. Okay, and there's a lot of, ever since COVID happened, I've seen a huge influx of people turning to homeschooling, and also, also an influx of people who can afford it going to private schools and things. I just wanted to ask you, from your experience, how do you think that's affecting the public schools, or has something like that in your area been increasing, homeschooling and things like that? What are your thoughts?
Yes, thank you. Homeschooling has been increasing. However, a lot of the parents that opted for the homeschooling started returning their students back, their children back to school, because the homeschooling takes a lot. You need to have someone there to monitor that, and they just weren't equipped. That's why so many students had the problems with virtual learning, because they did not have the support of someone at home to do that. But a lot of people are leaning toward the homeschool option, but what I have found in the past few years is they're returning them back to school because the difficulty in getting assistance with just helping them at home. However, I do know a lot of people that have done homeschool very successfully, but they had that support at home. They had someone at home that was able to assist them, but a lot of our students, they don't really have that. And as far as the private schools, you are correct. A lot of people that are in a financial position have pulled their students out. First of all, most of the people that are in a financial position don't even send their children to the neighborhood school. So, but a lot of our students that we are charged to educate and to fix out, their parents can't afford that, so we are their only hope. We are their only hope of making a difference, or even if they want to leave their community, we are their only hope. So it's up to us to give 150%. We can't complain, because if you say they're coming to me at this level, we are their only hope. So, but thank you for that. But the homeschooling, I find, did increase, but as I said, they're returning them back due to they don't have the skills to properly proctor the homeschooling at home.
Hi, I'm Kristen Griffith. I'm with the Baltimore Banner.
Hey,
Ms. Abbott, you spoke a lot about your dedication and passion, and I just wondered, when it comes to Black teachers today, from your perspective, are you seeing them match that same energy, or the energy of Quinta's character in Abbott Elementary, or are they kind of like Shirley Ralph's character, where they're a little burnt out or discouraged by the state of things today, and that passion has been diminished a little?
Thank you. Excellent. It's actually a variation, I will say. I have seen some that are not as talking and speaking of ACT teachers that are not as passionate, that don't have the passion and the expectation for our 80s to thrive. And they say, if they come to me, what am I going to do with all these kids below level? Well, we're going to do what we have to do. You can't say that. Or if they're complaining, what am I supposed to do with this child? You work on it. Get to know them. Give up your prep. They're dependent on us, and I would say that. Whereas I do find some, but I'm going to tell you, not as many as I did when I started out. Find some who are very passionate and determined to make a difference, but again, not half as many as when I started out. When I started out my first year, I was on a team of 3 strong ag teachers. They supported me. It was like 5 of us my first year. As I said, when I had 36 in the class, would stay. I could call on the weekend. The collaboration just is not there. I really wish that it was. But it's not. But I'm not seeing it as prevalent as it was when I started out. Even the passion and the drive from the black teachers, if that answers your question. From a few, but not as many.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Hi, Maureen Kelleher with Education Post. Ms. Abbott, I'm going to be a bad student and pack in 2 questions. One is, talk about your relationships with principals over your career, and if you've seen any trends or changes in the quality of principals over the time that you've been in schools. And then second, you may not even know the answer to this yet, but I know we haven't seen the last of you, so tell us what's next.
Oh, wow. That's an excellent question. I'm glad you brought that up.
My question.
As far as principals, during all of my years with the district, I've never had a bad memo, never had a memo, never had a 204. And trust and believe, I was very, very, very outspoken, extremely. One thing, I didn't sit in the teacher lounges and just complain and gossip. I would knock on the door, can we talk? This is what I don't agree with. And that doesn't work for all administrators, but that is where I was, but I was very outspoken, like even in meetings, leadership meetings and leadership, what? The kids can never be able to do that. I would get very offended. How are we even in this work and we're saying what our kids cannot do? We shouldn't even allow that to come out our mouth. Because if you're in this work and you're saying what a child cannot do or will not ever be able to do, this is not the profession for you. So I was extremely verbal, but I guess they knew I did my job. I made moves. So, when people call me and look at my as a retired teacher's law, she was like, yo, your scores every year. When everyone's coming back and everyone's sitting back with their tans and talking about the wonderful vacations and the cruises, Ms. Abbott didn't go anywhere. I might have went to Wildwood, but my data was off the charts. I was working to see what I could do with my kids, but and it was off the charts. So I'm not saying that I always agree with my administrators, but I've never had a negative anything in my file. My first year, the principal, it was very difficult my very first year, he put it in my permanent file, actually after the second week, he called me in his office and he said, I've never seen a first year teacher transform a class the way that you have with the behaviors, but it took time. I didn't sleep. I gave up my lunches, I gave up my prep, I had to hear the story. I had to talk to him because when my first day in the classroom, them kids were out of, I was like, yo, what am I going to do? I was in the military, all dressed up, my little briefcase and heels, I had to change all of that. Went to a backpack, I said no. But just getting to know their story. I said, all right, I have to change my look up, I can't be all antsy, but I got to know their story and he was very impressed. But as other administrators, I did have one that came in and just really made it difficult for her. Not me. I loved her. She shut the school down. The guys had to wear ties. The girls wore skirts. They were up their straight lines. The learning was taking place. And she ended up, I'm not going to get into tell about that happening in the district. Because everybody don't want people coming into our school shutting it down. So then we'll just maybe do complaints and do whatever we have to do. But that young lady was making moves in the school. And it's not like she didn't get it for me, but I work. I don't mind work. When your vision is aligned with our students, you can give me any kind of task, I'm going to do it because I like your vision. So, and then you have some, you know, the expectation starts at the top with our administrators. You have to set it and everything will go, you know, flow up under that. Other people say, you need to be an administrator back in the day, not now, because it's not my passion, but it just wasn't my passion. My passion was always in the classroom. But to answer you, I've had good relationships with every administrator that I've served with. Again, I did not agree with everything that they did. And I never had any type of negative write-up my entire years in the classroom. And I was very, very, very verbal and outspoken. Some people are like, she's a good teacher, but sometimes her attitude, no, some of her attitude is about the kids for me, not here for the adults. Thank you.
All right, our last question. I mean, it's such a terrible moderator this time, but all right, Jess.
Hi, Ms. Abbott. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. It's been wonderful. My name is Jessica Califatti. I also work in the Cultural Center. If you could snap your fingers and make change, what would you ask the administration of the School District of Philadelphia to change, and what would you ask the teachers union to change that you think could improve outcomes for kids?
Good question. We need to get people in the classrooms in front of our babies that understand them, that know them, and that can move them. I understand the degree in education, but right now, even if you look at the past years, it's not working. It's not working. Our scores are so low every year, and maybe give the teachers even, because I'm telling you, I know some teachers that came in and they really, they wanted to good, they really had the passion. They may need some extra coaching even, but I think they need to get some veteran teachers in there to coach. Like, you can apply to be a coach in the district, and I know people that have been in coaching positions and they weren't even effective in the classroom. You know what I mean? You cannot coach up a teacher if you weren't even effective, or if you can't go in there and say, okay, this is how we're going to do this. But they need support also. But what I really think is at the forefront, we have to get people that can own our classes. They have to be passionate, and maybe even give them a little bit more money. Give them incentive, because I'm going to tell you something. If we would have ever got incentive pay for test scores, I would be a millionaire by now. Trust me. I would be a millionaire because I moved 97% of it. But some type of incentive for moving, and then the ones that aren't moving. How are you a teacher and every year 80% of your students are below basic? I see it every year. How are you still doing this? So we have to change that, because in the long run, it's affecting our students, but it's the people that are in front of them and making sure the ones that have that passion have all the support they need. I will be going into schools. I have some for my students, some that are former principals. I've had some new teachers on the Schools Out conference that I went to, just supporting, because I'm about this work. I'm about the work. I'm about the work. So thank you for your question.
All right, we are really out of time. I'm really getting, just real quick, what you doing next? Where can we see you next? You gonna be a coach?
No. No, I have a couple of speaking engagements. I'm doing the State of Black Learning in Pittsburgh. And I'm doing Jimmy Kimmel vacation. Actually, it's coming up, Jimmy Kimmel vacation in Costa Rica. But as I move on, I just want to continue to support and inspire people in this work, because I'm really passionate about this work, but something has to change. It's really getting depressing, and it should be illegal, because every night, you know, I'm in Philadelphia, I turn on the news, young people have guns, they're shooting. Actually, one of my, I know a lot of the faces I see that's coming up on the news a lot of times. Something has to change in our schools, and every year we say that. And then every year you look at the data, it's open to everyone. Just pull up the test scores in some of our inner city schools and see how many kids are proficient and how many are below basic. But yet, you know, the people that are entrusted to them are still able to go on fabulous vacations and drive down their ace cars and go to their nice homes, when our kids can't even read and write. They can't even read and write, and they're graduating. So they can't even go to college if they want to. Because I told people, if you're in the school from K to 8 and you're below basic from K to 8, all that, the teachers in that, you're responsible for this child. How did you tell this child? He went from kindergarten to 8 in the same school and still cannot read and write. So we have to look at ourselves and blame ourselves that the child was under our for the first 8 years of school, first 5 years of school, and still can't read or write. It should be illegal.
Let's give Ms. Abbott a very warm